My name is Tabernath Aredosia. Now, for anyone who doesn't know me, I am this sort of omniscient genie friend of the parties, who has been toying with them since day one. I am here to guide you all on a recap through sessions 1 through 17, in the midst of the dreaded session 18. This is just over the horizon. Now, we will open up everything, questions and alike, in the chat room. We will answer all of them. But I am going to speed through this. It's going to be fast and furious. It's going to be very fun. We will also be delving into each character for a brief 2-minute spat. Feel free to ask questions along the way as we begin on this journey. Firstly, starting with the different party members, we are going to start with everyone's second favorite, there's only 2 of them, paladin, Jaka Extra. Jaka was a small boy who grew up in the town of North Shore. He's a lot like me, except I'm better. His father owned a fishing company named Extra's Anchors, and they worshipped the god of the sea, Veor. For those of you who don't know Veor, he was kind of disgraced for murdering all of his people. Which is why he gets a decent bit of hate nowadays. But things happen. Jaka, as a young boy, never knew his mother, and therefore settled on a quest to find purpose, find adventure, and, most importantly, restore faith in his god. It's quite noble, really. Jumping now to the other paladin, a holy boy raised in Helios, where the campaign started. How exciting! Kaithar Zacharias grew up with noble blood in his veins and a will to follow the largest god in the pantheon, Helios, the all-god and god of light. Now, he knew no other way, only knew Helios. But when the gods went silent 2 weeks before the start of this campaign, Helios began to question his faith, especially when a longtime friend of his, Deacon Linux, was put up for execution. The drama! So enticing, don't you think? Finally, well, not finally on the surface, we move far to the south, outside of the realms of the known world so far, to an area just east of Dragon's Gate, a small town named Hamilton, which is not shown on the map, but it's where the party's heading. There we meet a young boy by the name of Zeldok, a half-dragon, not to be confused with the half-dragon in the monster manual, or the Dragonborn in the player's handbook. Yes, I do read. He is more of a sort of Wattpad fanfic half-breed. It's very cool. Standing at 8'4", he makes even giants look small. And after he found a small piece of a jade orb and was dragged into a sort of prophecy, he was forced out of his home hastily by his father encouraging him to leave as he's hunted by the deadly black dragon, Ziludukanir. That's a mouthful. So, with Zeldok on the run, he retreated north to Helios in hopes to find answers and eventually return home. Finally, the last original party member, yes, there's not original ones, it's Varys. Or Eren, but we'll get to that. Varys grew up in the Underdark. Ooh, spooky. And the Underdark is quite awful. I'm awful, but the Underdark is worse. Filled with spiders and more spiders and people who slave people. It's a terrible place. Varys was born there, but raised in Helios, in an orphanage. During his time at the orphanage, he never really fit in well because he was a drow. And when Varys became of age and was forced out onto the street, he continued to look out for the orphans in the orphanage, working, gambling, buying food for them. Until one unfortunate day, he was forced to make life as a criminal, when a gambling match gone sour resulted in his opponent's death. At his hand, of course, but what would it be without a little drama? To the question, does Varys have little birds? I'm going to need some elaboration. That's a very specific question. No birds that I know of, and I've known him for some time. But with the party united in Helios, unaware of what was to come, we now delve into the first session. Now, these are sessions that none of you have seen on stream, so there's bound to be all sorts of excitement. But today, the first day of the session, was the day of an execution. Because taverns are so generic. Execution of Deacon Linux for treason against the city of Helios. The party walked in to him about to be executed. They thought this was very bad. They saw him die, and then the party was all passed anonymous notes by a strange hooded figure. Ooh, spooky. So, the party, for plot reasons, took the letters and followed the instructions, leading them to a tavern. So there was a tavern, but it came later, so it's good. From there, they met a man named Aiden, who Caithar knew well. Aiden was a man of the clergy, and he told them that there is a power rising in the east that, for some reason, the church was trying to keep under wraps so that they could maintain their power over the people. So he sent the party into the dungeons of the crypts of Helios in order to find an orb of Allsight. This orb is sort of like an open Skype call, all the time, always, where you can always see what the other people with the orbs are seeing, and you can always hear what the other people with the orbs are hearing. Very powerful, very deadly, if you don't know who's on the other end. They went down, they found the orb. The orb gave them a choice. In a very spooky voice, that sort of sounded like this. But that's not my voice. That's the DM's. We're not the same people. The orb asked them, would you like to know the next target of this evil? Or the source of the evil? The drow knew where the source was. Tabaka. Good point. Not a ripoff. If it is, blame the DM, not me. They decided that this orb and its spooky voice within inside, not knowing who was on the other end, they decided to leave, where they ran into Varen. Now, Varen is an interesting character. The head of the clergy in Helios and one of the most prominent figures and most powerful men in the country. He gave them an ill-advised, passive-aggressive threat that sounded something like, I know what you're up to, stay away. While also idly threatening his son, Aiden. They bring the orb to Aiden at the Helios Star Inn. They leave the orb unattended for some time, because why wouldn't you? And a black figure, an ooze, creeps out from the orb, stabbing and killing Aiden, Caithar's close friend. They watch Aiden die in Caithar's arms, and Zeldok gets toasty, frying the gods with his dragon's breath as they take off out the window, planning to meet at the north gate. After a long chase scene, all three of them made it safely into the night, riding off north, unaware of a plan, and forced into becoming best friends. And, of course, I come up soon. It's so exciting. Now, after a small encampment, and we're on session 2 now, they discuss the events, reminiscing on everything that just happened. The party now realizes that they are being stalked by a white owl. Now, white owls, just for geographical reasons, are not common this far south. Considering it's early fall and there's no reason for it to be here, this is concerning. But again, it's just an owl. What can it do? Or so they thought. Varys recognizes the owl as he saw it in his backstory. And they are interrupted by a hunter fanatically looking for his wife. They find out that the hunter is an illusion of something. His wife then comes looking for him, who is also an illusion or something. They run around in a wild goose chase for some time before finding a wagon where the hunters were set up, with all of the people murdered by someone who looks exactly like Varys. Ooh, got bamboozled. How interesting. They then see it fly away in the shape of an owl, and they realize something is terribly wrong. The orb, however, this orb, lovely orb, always seems to have an answer. It tells us to get a key from a man named Tor in Greenborough. They don't know why, and frankly, I don't know why they trusted it. Because in D&D, when something has a scary voice, you don't trust it. But they did. So off they head to find a man named Tor in Greenborough. And as they're walking along, and what would D&D be without walking along a small road and the sound of horses galloping up the road? They find a man and a large crew of individuals ransacking the bodies of the hunters who were just killed. They recognize this man as Edward Mondelin, a total dickwad, if I do say so myself. He is a powerful individual who resides as a noble in the south. Zeldok, naturally, gets involved with him, and they get into quite a problem, quite a kerfuffle as they confront each other. They're looking for a woman who possesses an amulet, and then Mondolin threatens Zeldok as he recognizes him, saying that he will undoubtedly call Zilu Dokanir, the Black Dragon, hunting Zeldok. So they fight for a while and they do their whole thing and they cast spells at each other and everything. And they end up resolving the conflict peacefully, believe it or not, going their separate ways, agreeing never to see each other again. It was quite remarkable, actually. They then find their way to Used to Be, traveling north now through the woods, where, in short, they meet a werewolf. The werewolf is the last remaining member of the town, hence it being called Used to Be. You'll get lost, but we'll get you back on your path. They then traveled north to Used to Be. There they met a werewolf. The werewolf was the last remaining survivor of the town. He gave them a little violin story about about how sad his life was since he had killed his wife and his daughter, and now he was, well, alone. But I'm even tearing up over here. It's just not awful. But He told them about a cure to lycanthropy. The party couldn't get it. They said they had other things to do, so they left. Just another side story that the plot, the D&D party ignored. William's just in shambles. Just the long nights, just writing. It's so horrible. But thus ended session 2. As they reached Greenborough, and frankly, one of my favorite sessions. It was brilliant, brilliant writing. They made it to Greenborough and stopped by a few rangers, who aren't truly important, but they introduced themselves as a name named Glee Carson, leader of a group named as the Ranger Stones. They protect areas and stuff, and I've met them a few times, but they're nothing noteworthy. But then they head into Greenborough. And the Greenborough is a perfect town in every sense. It seems quite perfect, quite lovely. And they're there, again, as a reminder, looking for a man named Tor who has a key who will help them solve this mystery. Which, well, they don't know who Tor is or what he has, but apparently he has something. And when they get to Greenborough, they realize that things are weird. They already have guest houses, beautiful guest houses, stocked with food and wine and laid out for the party perfectly. And for a long time, they assume that something is terribly wrong in the town. For those of you saying that boss music played, I have the stream muted, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. But regardless, they are now inside Greenborough. And everything seems fine, the mayor seems fine, except for the fact that they all kind of seem like creepy, sadistic, everything's perfect all the time children. They're very weird. But eventually they do some digging and digging and digging, and they find out that the mayor of this town is a powerful wizard who has put a spell over the town to keep everyone from aging, and that when children reach the age of 10, that children are the only ones allowed to age. They, how do I say this? Eat them. The children. It's terrible. It's just the worst. Like, if you've all noticed the pattern here, it just keeps getting worse. But anyways, because eating children is bad, the party killed the wizard and then found Tor. And Tor, well, he was an old man. Tired, weary, a wizard. Who they went up to have a conversation with him. Tabaka! Eating children is that bad. Monster. It's horrible stuff. But they found Tor. Tor told them, well, yes, I've seen this orb. I've heard this voice before. This is a bad omen. And I'm not giving you the key. And then, again, the party left the orb alone for like 2 seconds. The being came out, killed Tor, and revealed his name. And for those of you who have been watching the stream now for some time, you'll know the name Sobek, which is bad. Sobek is terrible. Just awful. And this is the first we see of the villain. The main villain. The BBEG, as the kids say. Session 4. 1 week has passed since the Wizard Tower. They're heading now to Wayward. They've moved past the freaky time town and they've moved past eating children and just, all the bad things. So, in summary of what's happened so far, just to keep with our dear friends here, they found an orb. There was a scary person inside. An owl has been stalking them. The theme of the western winds blowing keeps recurring. They keep hearing about this strange saying. The orb led them to a man with a key. The orb then killed the man with the key, revealed his name to be Sobek, and that the owl is also some sort of omniscient force who is trying to set them up into failure. And now they're in Wayward. Good, good. Now in Wayward, they get to do a little bit of shopping, a little bit of relaxing. Things have been, again, fairly tense for, the most part. So, what's good is a little bit of relaxing. They find out that the woman, the owl, was a woman named Nora at one point. So, they haven't seen the owl since. Strange. No more owl. But they do find out from a traveler that there has been bombings in the city of Genesis, the capital, which is where the party heads immediately after, because bombs are bad and terrorists are bad. Now, the family in charge of Genesis, the Lionhearts, are composed of Torig, Theoden, and Thayron. Torig being the current king, Thayron being the older brother, and Theoden being the younger brother. It's here that things really start to go to shit. Now, they go into the city hearing about the threats of a terrorist named Malice. And Malice has somehow been blowing up places all across the city without ever, you know, revealing how he knows where to blow up. He's always right. He'll show up and be like, oh, I'm going to blow up a bar. And then he'd blow up a bar, and there'd be no traces of a bomb, no traces of anything. They don't know how he did it. So, naturally, ooh, Orkin. Good boy. Good job. Now, naturally, the party isn't just going to let this happen, or I'd hope not. So, they do some investigating. Good on them. They look around, find nothing. They look around some more, find nothing. They go to the market, and there they find a wee half elf gentleman, a lad, selling potions. This is important to the story if you can't tell. And he's selling a sort of milky, white potion. He says it can heal anything. The party, of course, doesn't believe this, because what sort of DM would give someone something that can heal anything? But the party takes it. They buy a few. They don't all drink it. Jaka, however, everyone's favorite flamboyant flabbergaster, buys one. And there goes Jaka, who pounds it down, drinking it very quickly, and he gains 100 temporary hit points. So, I guess it did work. Sort of. A little. For now. As they go on, though, another explosion happens during their time in the city. They go to find out that there's nothing there that would tell them what made this blow up. But they do some investigation and find, with detect magic, evocation. Who would have guessed? Fire magic made fire. That didn't take me to detect magic to put that together. But some more and more investigating leads to the party splitting up. They have some run-ins with the Theoden, the second-born prince, the young prince. He's sort of a dick, but they move past it. It's at this point that they have found a lead. They follow it to an alchemist shop, and by the way, the party has split up at this point. As Malice says, I am going to blow up the castle. Which everyone's like, oh, how's he going to blow up the castle? And they're like, oh, well, I don't know. So the party splits up, one to find the alchemist who made these potions, who they believe had something to do with the bomb, and one to go rescue the people at the castle. The group who finds the alchemist finds a man sitting around tons of jars of milky white liquid, most of them consumed. You all know where this is going. He then said, when is a bomb not a bomb? And proceeded to blow himself up. And luckily the party survived that. But then they realized that the salesman in the shop market was selling healing potions that turned the person into a bomb. And the way he knew what was going to blow up next was due to the fact that he would sell one potion a day to a nobleman, to an alcoholic, to a single mom, and he'd know what was going to blow up. By selling to Jaka, the son of a noble whose father was currently at the castle, he knew he was going to blow up the castle. So they go on a whole elaborate plot, and they run around, and they rescue the prince, and they rescue a bunch of other people, and they realize that by saving Jaka, and by saving Jaka's father, those are things they can accomplish. But they can't save Theron, who was given too much of the potion to survive. And after a harrowing rescue attempt and killing the terrorist Malice, they are left with a choice. Let Theron walk away from the city and blow up, and die alone, blowing up, or try and cure him in some desperate measure. They go with the second, and it doesn't work. He blows up and dies. That's it. And now the prince is dead. The firstborn prince, the heir to the throne. And the party says, gosh darn it, that's terrible. And Kythar gets his sword, because Theron gives it to him. And that's about it. It's a very sad session. Lots of blowing up and, alike. Now, up next is a session of mine that is possibly my least favorite out of bitterness towards the party, because they do something that really gets me. The party, without telling William, left the orb in Jaka's home, wrapped up in salt water and nudie mags, in a safe, without telling the DM. They did that. I was livid, very hurt. Lots of crying and sadness involved in that. Because the orb was essential to the plot, but whatever. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, they leave without the orb. Whatever. And they begin to go and relax. Heading to North Shore now. Heading towards the Frosted Isles, where the orb previously and the owl had guided them. Now let me tell you, Tabaka, murdering PCs is my favorite thing to do. It's my favorite pastime, but it isn't William's. We're different people, as I said. They take a long ship journey, sailing across the seas. They meet a weird purple guy with 4 arms, and then they ignore that side plot too, and it's fine. But whatever. And they arrive in Silicus, which I will mark on the map because I'm a good streamer. Arriving at Silicus now, they meet a group known as the Wilders. And the Wilders are an interesting group of people. You know those guys from Game of Thrones? Or any Norse barbarian group? Yeah, that's them. Pretty much. What lazy writing, William. Shame on you. Anyways, the Wilders, that's these people, live far in the north, and the Frosted Isles, which is where the party is now. Jaka tries to make friends and be nice and do his thing, but it doesn't go so well. They don't take lightly to his, well, you all know how Jaka is. Flamboyancy, we'll call it. They tell them one important thing, which is really the only important thing that happened this session. The center, which is where they're trying to go, which is where they believe the key to this stupid owl is surrounded by an eternal storm called the Tempest, which makes a big updraft and constantly is impassable. But the Wilders, one of the sole miners of adamantine in the world, use that to their advantage, climbing the giant 45-degree angle mountains. Whatever they're called. I'm assuming just mountains, but I'm not sure. And they wingsuit over top of it, landing now in World's End, taking the giant journey through air towards where they mine. Fun. Barbarians with wingsuits. I bet you didn't see that coming. So the party spends a good chunk of next session prepping, saying, ooh, we need to get ready to fly with wingsuits. And they do. They head up the mountain. One of them falls. They get back up. They've met a frost giant, who, luckily, they don't have to fight, because they would lose. His name was Jotnar. They reach the storm, and the winds are very fast. Very deadly up here, nearly over 100 kilometers an hour. Or in American, I believe that's close to 60 miles per hour. I think. Tabby's Canadian. And there they lift. Flying now, they manage to all gracefully land inside the Tempest. All except Chaka, who nearly freezes to death and then falls like 300 feet, but lives because of the wingsuit. So the Chaka did himself. And is there more Canadians in here? Love Canadians. All like so good. Canadians are the best. It's then that the party decides to do one of its signature scries, and if you watched any sessions at all, you'll know that the party likes to scry. They scry on Theoden. Oh yes, that is important. Thank you, Mindz. The name Tempest Meets Axe comes from the party almost dying. And if they had died, Kythos stated that they would have aptly been named The Tempest Meets Axe, hence the party's new name. Whatever. I'm not even, you know. The party then does one of its signature scries and sees Theoden, For those of you who don't remember, somehow, Theoden is the younger brother of Torrig. They found out through the pipework that Torrig, the king, committed suicide. He was just so sad from his son dying that, oh, how could he go on? It's so, oh my god, it's just terrible. But Theoden, no, he didn't do anything similar. Why would he? Why would he be sad? He burned down Jukka's house out of anger. You know, grief leads to anger, anger leads to the dark side. You understand. He burns down the house, finds the safe. The Golden Nugget, who is his guardian, that's what the party calls him. His name isn't Golden Nugget, but the party likes it. Brings Theoden the orb that they so kindly left behind wrapped in salt water and nudie mags. Theoden then has a nice meeting with Sobek, the big bad villain that they conveniently put in Theoden's hands, a war-hungry child. That wasn't a plan at all, actually, but it worked. Theoden then goes on a sort of bit of a possessed monologue and gets all hot and heavy. And the party realizes that they messed up. But there are bigger fish to fry, like the giant death tower that they are currently sitting in. So they head up into the big death tower. And in the big death tower, they realize that, well, they're kind of screwed. Because they're going up against who they have now identified as Nook. Nook is the false god of deceit and treachery, as Selbek is the false god of war. These are the only two they've identified, but they'll be identifying more soon. They then head up through the tower. Nook tortures them with illusions of things they desire. And then they eventually find Nook's true form after fighting through the illusions. Nook then reveals herself as a terrifying owl demon sort of thing, eats the party through her giant chest stomach, and they fall into a pocket dimension. And it's there they find someone else is down there. Someone else got stomached. Veor. Veor, the god of the sea, who, brief history lesson, that area here, this large, big, flat, crappy desert, he flooded in an attempt to defeat Sevror, who the party learns is the goddess of disease and pestilence, the false goddess, another evil being. But with Veor being so weak, he was then defeated by Nook, as his worshippers had abandoned him for murdering a large chunk of their population. What did each party member desire? Good question. I'm remembering. Zeldok saw his father, his desire to be home. I am now pulling up the notes because there's a good chance I don't remember.
Oh, we know what Jukka desired.
We know Jukka saw Veor.
And Kythar saw. I didn't.
And Kythar, yes. Thank you, Mindz. Deadlock. For always being such a swell lad. Kythar saw Aiden, his lost friend, who died. Remember? He got stabbed in Helios. It was bad. But then Veil gives them another little violin story, and he, I nearly died. Ooh. Very sad. But then he uses the last of his power to shoot them off. to Mount Celestia. It's there we're introduced to a few new people. They go up onto the mountain that is Celestia. They talk to the gods. They say, "Why the hell have you left?" And ooh, and they get all mad. Which, again, I understand the reasoning for being mad because why did you abandon us? And why have you not talked to anyone on Earth for like 2 months? It's very good. It's a good question. The gods then give another small violin story, and William monologues in a sad voice about how this how they worship the gods has been skewed, and the gods cannot gain power without being worshipped. If they go down and say, "Oh, Veor wasn't that bad for murdering hundreds of thousands," then people would stop worshipping Helios, and he would lose his power as well, which is bad. So they can't risk getting involved. But they are aware of the evil that has been coming. Here we're introduced to a new villain. Remember that piece of jade that Zeldok carries around and uses to scry and piss William off? Yeah, that one? Well, a shadow dragon by the name of Sedalfin was disguised as one of the dragon gods on Mount Celestia, hiding ever so gracefully within the eyes of the gods. To answer that question, Orkin, I thought about that. And no, it's not a plot hole because the church is covering it up. Hence what I said at the beginning. When they were told of the power rising in the east, the church executed the one person who spoke out against it, claiming that Helios was still all powerful and all good and all light and stuff. They covered it up. People can worship in a god that is silent if the Pope tells them he's not silent. At that point, you're just worshipping what the Pope says. See? Smart. I thought about it, didn't I? So they go to Mount Celestia. There's a big fight with a shadow dragon. They're told to run. And they do. They then end up in Vel, which conveniently the marker is already there. They end up in Vel, where they find another temple to another false god. Jukka finds a temple first, though, to Veor, the god of the sea. They head down into it after breaking an unbreakable door. Jukka finds a trident, has a Poseidon-like moment. Varys, however, gets distracted and watches as a cockroach crawls inside his hand, and he gets all freaked out and passes out. But Jukka turns into Poseidon, and he gets this cool trident called God's Bane. A trident that can transform into a sword and can kill a god when properly attuned to. That's essentially that session. I say that, but quite a lot did happen. Then they unlock another tomb further down, buried beneath the temple of Veor. There they find a temple to Sivror. Sivror is the goddess of disease, who of course they accidentally let out when Varys signs on as her warlock patron, subscribing to her bi-weekly subscription. Now he's a warlock, not just a rogue, which is also bad. So they subscribe to Searoar.io and then they move on. Now, they move on, saying, "This is bad. Let's leave." And they move to Peasant's Folly, the Hollow Pit, planning on investigating the original threat that was there. Another false god by the name of Bowley. Bowley, the false god of madness, is supposed to be there. But they get sidetracked by an old friend of Kythar's, an old war buddy, named Marcellus, who now lives in Peasant's Folly. So off they go to Peasant's Folly. Things are calm, things are nice. But then there's a dramatic setup. For those of you who don't know, I hope everyone does, because they're quite interesting. A false Hydra has been lurking and terrorizing the town. For those of you who don't know what a false Hydra is a big, mean looking creature, multiple heads, made of the flesh of its victims, and that when it sings, it can rewrite memories and completely erase them. If you've been married for 30 years, it can eat your husband in front of you and then sing, and you'll think that you have always been single. The party met one. They killed it. It was awesome. I enjoyed watching. Then they transferred down to the Hollow Pit. They went to the Hollow Pit with Marcellus. They knew that the dragon Ziludokanir had been spotted in the area. They were very careful. Down to the Hollow Pit they go, and they find the old temple to Boli, god of madness, who they know is evil. But they go down anyway. They go down, they dig around for a while, and they find a large pile of gold. Lots of it. And some of them fall under a spell where they dig away at the gold and they find a crown sitting atop the peak. Some of them then get sucked into the crown, specifically Zelnok and Kaithar, and the party splits up, doing two separate two-person sessions. Zeldok and Kaithar travel through a strange dimension that shows two realities. The reality where they win, and the reality where they lose. And they explore these realities, traumatized by what will come if they do not follow through with their plan to kill the false gods. Meanwhile, Jaka and Varys have a traumatic moment fighting off a blood demon known as a Babao. It's very good. Again, very traumatic. They, however, survive, re-meet up. Bowley escapes, runs off. And then they head out, not aware of how to kill these things that they keep releasing. They head out and find a black dragon there, wandering the bit. Not Ziludokanir, but a smaller dragon, Ziludokanir's son, who they murder viciously. Well, they didn't. The Sentinel Feet did, but we don't talk about it. Next session is very important. They head to Koraband. They find out there's a traitor in the ranks of the city named Vidorok, trying to betray Yargle, the leader of the orcs. So they end up in a large arena fight. Kaithar having to fight Yargle, due to the fact that Vidorok challenged them blatantly and painted Kaithar as a traitor to the friendly orcs. And now we introduce a new character, some of who you later, Gems, might know as Cormac. Cormac is everyone's favorite, surprisingly smart dumb barbarian. And Cormac makes quite a dramatic entrance, as he was set out by his father, Angmar, the leader of the Wilders, to go and find the party for answers, as Theoden has begun sending armies to the Frosted Isles, trying to reclaim them. For anyone who knows World of Warcraft, yes, Vidorok is a lot like Gul'dan. Evil sorcerer sort of guy, warlock. Very terrible. But Vidorok again paints Kaithar as a traitor. Yargle then fights, but Zeldok saves the day, projecting his scrying ability with major illusion over top of the city, over top of the arena, saving the day by informing the world that war is coming, and Theoden, possessed by Sobek, fully intends on starting a war with the orcs. Again, things are getting very bad all the time, constantly, and the party doesn't really know how to deal with it all that well. Now, this next session is very interesting, and this is the last session I'll go into. I know we said sessions 1 through 17, but there's quite a bit of sessions to go through. So, we are going to go up through one more session, allow for a bit of a question period, and I'll show you all that the rest of the sessions are on Mindz Gaming's channel. Now, the last thing that happens that's thoroughly important is Zeldok beats up an orphan and retrieves the Orb of Dragonkind. Another piece of it, anyway. There is more context to him beating up an orphan, but doesn't it just sound funnier that way? A little more wrong, a little more evil. From there, they go on a big long run. After Sivlor chops off the hands of the god of fire, Durin, and plants a disease in the volcano, and then threatens to kill every single dwarf. And now keep in mind, I wasn't there for this. This is just what I heard. But it was bad. So they go around, running around the dwarf island, saying that, oh, everyone's going to die, and we're all going to die, and it's going to be so bad, and And they run around. And luckily, they evacuate Sutagroth and Thuldahor with some degree of ease, but Devalden there aren't enough ships for. So they lead them, all of the dwarves, literally all of them, into the Underdark. Where, if you've seen the most recent sessions, you know what goes down. But we will leave that all up to you. Now, before we leave you, we have a small gift for you. A commercial break before the next session, before the dreaded session 18. And this commercial break will end off our stream today, and hopefully you all enjoy it as we move towards session 18. And please, again, I hope you all take a moment, or several, to go onto our channel, watch the other sessions, enjoy them. Oh no, it's a radio commercial. It's quite entertaining, very professional. I think you'll like it. And in the most metagaming, railroading kind of way, Mindz, are we ready?
I believe we are. Let's see if it works.
Hit the
Here
music.
Ahoy there! Are you a small business owner trying to stay afloat? With so many customers all over Eden, there simply isn't enough time for you to do everything yourself. That's why you should trust your precious booty to Axtra's Anchors. Our team of seamen will help you get ship done. We'll also make sure you get the best rates so your business can be smooth sailing. Axtra's Anchors, where ship happens. Hook, line, and sinker. Offices North Shore and Genesis.
And that is where we shall end the stream. We will see you guys all on Friday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern for Session 18 and the Showdown with Theoden.
Toodles.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Catch you later.